Hey guys, welcome back again. It's me, Jordy, and today we're going to be looking at our episode 6, our series we're building together. Join me as we look at authenticating and securing our application using middlewares and all of that cool stuff. Let's go. We are going to be looking at building our API further, and the goal would be to basically enhance our API by adding protected routes. So the goal behind the lesson basically is we're going to upgrade or enhance it to have authentication and authorization middlewares. What we're going to be looking at is implementing protected routes, using middlewares for authentication, checking permissions, maybe not so much permissions, but allowing you to have access to your sort of resource, that sort of thing. Um, think of this like as Facebook, for example. When you log into your Facebook account, you don't expect to see your sister's information or maybe your friend's information, right? You only have access to your resource or your profile page. And that's basically what we're going to be looking at here. So we're going to say, when I'm logged in, do I have access to only my tasks? And I should only be able to see my tasks. That's basically the kind of thing we're looking at today. Um, the outline of it is we're going to be introducing protected routes, which is basically like pages or resources that are sort of safeguarded by authorization checks. So what do I mean? I mean a page that you can only access if you are authorized and you are authenticated. So an example of this can be your profile page on Facebook, your banking page. These sort of pages, you need to be logged in for you to access banking profile, um, you know, information about you that's maybe secure or a little bit like private, that sort of thing. That's protected routes. We're going to be looking at implementing a middleware. A middleware function is basically just a function or a piece of code that runs before you make a request and after you make a request as well. So it's just like a safety sort of check. Within that middleware, we're going to be using JWT tokens. The same way we've been able to register and log in, we're going to use the same sort of methodology. We should be able to extract and pull out information from our context. And then obviously, we're going to handle expired tokens and valid tokens as well. Cool. Code example, we're going to be writing a piece of code called isAuthenticated. And I'll show you guys a little bit more about that as time goes on, but you have to worry about that. And then we're also going to be working on an IsOwner middleware, which is another function that basically checks if you are the owner of that resource. So task was created, are you the owner of that task? So can you access that task? Sort of thing. And then in terms of the pages, it's going to be exactly the same. So you're still going to have access to your all tasks, each individual task, all users, that sort of thing. But we're just going to wrap the main sort of like routes or the main pages with like an authenticated and its owner, so we can check: are you the owner? Are you who you say you are, basically? And then we won't worry too much about handling errors right now, but the base error that we will be looking at is like a 4.1, which is like unauthorized, and 4.3, which is like forbidden. And then obviously we're going to be testing our code using Postman or Thunder Client. An example of this can also be like, like if you have a key, and a key that's not sort of like for your house won't like unlock the door or unlock the gate, right? So you can have a key, but you need access. You need the right key to have access to your room or to your house. That's an example of basically what we're going to be looking at here. So yeah, I have an example here of just like a flow that we're going to work through together. So the client request is essentially from our front end or maybe Postman. Um, Authentication layer, this is basically where we check some route guards, some checks in terms of, do you have access to the platform, do you have access to the website or the app, whatever it is. And then we have a function called isAuthenticated, what they what that does is it checks, okay, cool, is there a valid token associated or linked to this action that's being performed? If there is no valid token or it's invalid, you won't have access, right? Again, remember, you can have a key, but it may not be the key for your room or for your house. So you won't be able to access if you have the wrong key, something like that. If you have a valid token, right? If you have a valid token, what we'll do is we'll basically check, okay, cool. There's like route types. There's like public routes, which is just routes that is publicly available to everyone. So think of this as login, sign up pages, right? So on Facebook, everyone should be able to sign up and log in. You don't need to be logged in for you to create an account. You can log in, you can sign up, you can go to the sign up page, you can go to the login page. So public route is basically a route or a page that is available and accessible throughout the platform or website, regardless of who you are, whether you're authenticated or your permissions, right? That's the public route, so that's fine. Protected routes, these are again your profile, your little bit more sensitive data, profile, banking information, pages that you probably want to have like some sort of access control or access check for you to be able to log in, right? So, and that's going to be hit in our authentication layer. What then happens here is we check, okay, cool. The router we are pinging or the router we want to access, are you the owner for this? Because remember, this is about our task application, right? So we ask, are you the owner of this resource or this route? If you are the owner, you have access to it. If you're not the owner of the task, you will be forbidden from accessing the platform or accessing the task. If the route that we're on doesn't require access or doesn't require you to be the owner, we're basically going to pass as well. So think of this as all tasks page. So like a page or a route that basically allows you to view everything. Like you don't need to be the owner on that level because you're checking everything from everyone. So that's an example of a page or maybe a route that doesn't necessarily need you to be the owner. It would be like, okay, cool. We want to check all tasks. We don't need to be the owner. We can maybe be the admin or something like that. Um, but don't worry too much about that. We're going to work on admin like also later down the line, that sort of thing. So I wouldn't stress too much about that. Bonus task maybe would be like at the end of the lesson, we can give a task for you guys to be able to modify some code, make some changes to it. And what you'll be able to do is maybe update the code so that we can only update tasks that we are the owners for. And the same thing sort of goes where you can add like an is admin route. So if you're the admin, you can do everything. If you're not, you can be the owner and that sort of thing. Cool. The outcomes of the episode will be quite straightforward. We're going to be able to implement authentication middleware, so is authenticated. We can use or reuse authorization code, like are you the owner, are you not the owner. We can secure our APIs, that sort of thing. Secure our backend routes, test them, sort of thing. So yeah, that's it for this section. We're going to dive into the code now, so let's go. Hey guys, so welcome again to our the coding section of the video. And yeah, let's dive into it. So let me do this. Cool. So basically, as you can see, this is our API. So we've been you will actually notice I made a few small changes to our backend. The first thing is I actually like refactored the code a little bit. So I created a routes folder, and then inside the routes folder, I basically just split out the user routes and the tasks routes. So this is like more like an more like not efficiency. Let's call it like readability. It's easier to read and understand when you sort of separate your routes. So as your application grows, you want to separate each route. So what I did here is essentially I've got a routes which is has my users, and this is in its own route, which is quite nice. So as you can imagine, there's only user specific stuff here. So there's only users, like there's organs for authentication and registration and all of that jazz. And as you can see, it's only like 80 lines, 81 lines of code, which is clean. It's modular, it's nice. So if we go to our tasks, route, it's the same thing. So here, as you can imagine, we've got tasks that only tasks, basically data is here. So we have our task service, which we're going to call for our methods to access our get, our create, our update, delete. So, and as you can see, this is all like task specific, so which is quite cool. Um, what I'll do is I'll firstly just test our API just to make sure that everything is working and running as smoothly as we expect it to. And then after that, we're going to be working on our lovely middleware and authentication. So let's go. Let me go here. And then let me just go to here, and then let's just do get. Cool. So as you can see, this route basically we're going to get all the tasks that belong to user ID with 7, with a user ID of 7. So as you can see, there's a number. So if we change it to be like user ID 1, there we go. So as you can see, like we are getting tasks only for the associated user that we are inputting. So if we put this to user 2 doesn't have any tasks. So as you can see, some error handling we're doing, which is quite smooth. So user 3, I'm sure this one has something, hopefully drum roll. Um, hey guys, so we're back again with our APIs. It was giving us some issues, so hopefully it works now fine. Yeah, without further ado, let's go. so so we can get hello world, and then wanted to test the tasks endpoint. Okay, cool. That's fine. And then what we wanted to do was wanted to basically say, okay, cool. Return to me all the tasks that belong to user ID 2. This is where I got the issue actually. Let me cancel the request. But that should give us user tasks ID 2. Okay, it's fine. I'll just proceed and continue because my application is acting up very funny. So I'll cancel the request and I'll just proceed with the lesson, and then we will test the validation endpoints at the bottom. So let me just do this. Yeah, it's just doing this weird thing, um, but it's okay. What we'll do is we'll just proceed with the lesson, right? So I think we've seen that you can ping the tasks endpoint. Let me just do this so it doesn't look like it's broken. I mean, it is broken, but it's all hope is not lost yet. Okay, so the first things first, we can access our tasks, right? We can access your task, you can access all tasks. So what we wanted to do is we basically wanted to add some sort of like authentication and middleware so that you can only access what you have access to. Let me just run this. Let me go back here and then let me cancel the server. Let me just run this. Something is strange with this application, but it's fine. Okay, so we spoke about middlewares. So the first thing we're going to actually do is we're going to create like a middleware function. I believe it should be here. If it's not here, we'll create it. So let's do middleware. Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry, it's empty. We're going to create two middleware functions again. So middleware function is basically just a function that runs before and after you make a request. That's it. It's just a function that runs before and after, and you can sort of play with it. You can put it wherever you want it to be. So what we'll do is we're going to create an auto TS, and we're going to create I forgot what it's called actually. So it sucks because our API is actually acting up, or at least our HTTP client. So it's going to be a bit of a interesting one. Let me see if I can go to Postman and no account. Don't want to create. Don't want to cancel. I want to sign in. I just want to make a request. Let me try to get a an application or extension. Cool. So far it's working. So I'm gonna just dive straight into it because it is like it's been acting up a little bit strange. What I'll do is I'll just go straight into it. So I'm basically pinging the tasks endpoint, and so this should return each and every tasks with their users as well. As you can see, user ID 1, user ID 3. So basically, this is getting all the tasks with everything that's linked to it. what I want to do is I want to basically only access the tasks that I have access to when I'm logged in. So right now, this is a public route. I mean, i.e., anyone can access it, but we want to restrict this route to only be available to logged in users, right? So for now, because we're not logged in yet, it's gonna work fine. So what I'll do is I need to basically make a request to the sign in so I can log in and get the token. But before then, I want to actually write the code for me to be able to be authenticated before I make that out, before I make the request. I need to also make that out as well, but yeah. So what I'll do is this auto TS. So I've got some code here, as you know. Cool. So basically, this is a middleware function that's for authentication. And what this does is this basically this runs in the context, right? So the context is basically the crucial element of our application. It's everything that's basically we are pinging all our endpoints, the data that's passing from one thing to another. Context is basically the data that we're getting at that point in time, right? It's probably a better way to say it. But yeah, context essentially has data that you need to send to the next middleware or the next function, essentially. And then, so what we're doing here is we're basically going to look for the authorization field in the header. So this basically lets us know if we are unauthorized. So do you remember that flow that we talked about, where we said if there's a valid token, then and it's sort of valid, then we have access. If there isn't, we're going to get an unauthorized. So again, similar, just think of the key example. So if you don't have a key, you can't access your house. So do you have a key? Do you have the lock? Yes or no? No, I don't. Okay, you can't enter the house. Think of this example as something like that. So we're checking, okay, cool. Are you authorized? Do you have access to? If not, and then we need to basically get the token. So I'll show you guys the structure of how it looks like. But essentially, we have like it splits between like the actual token and like a word bearer. So essentially what we're doing here is we're basically splitting it, and we're basically grabbing the second item, which is the token. The first item is bearer. I'll walk you guys through it. Essentially this is just getting the fields that we need, right? Once we have that, we're basically going to verify. Okay, cool. Verify this token against our secret. So secret is just our the key that we're passing. It's basically just a way for us to verify. This can be a different value. It doesn't really matter. I've used secret before 5 days ago, so I'm going to just keep it as secret. So this method is a JWT method, which sort of decodes our token, because remember our token again is a set of characteristics, and we can give it like IDs, we can give it a name. So anything that's important for your data, you can include it in the token. But remember that token gets encrypted. So we need to decode or decrypt it so that we can get the values that are stored in the token, right? Similar to a cookie as well, in that like it has data that is relevant for you. Could be secured as well, most probably is secured. But yeah, this is the token. If we can't decode it, we know that you are unauthorized. So if for some reason there is maybe a better token that does exist, but it's maybe a weird format, or it's invalid, or it has expired, we won't allow you access. We're just pretty cool, So we know that at this point we expect only valid, correct tokens, if that makes sense. Once we decode it, now we have the user's information. Again, that's going to be maybe your ID, maybe like any information about you, like your name, that sort of things. We are going to store that as well and decode it. Cool. So let's give this a shot and see. So what I'll do is I'll go here to this route. So this again gets all tasks, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to just pause this here just to show you guys now that we now won't be able to make a request to the tasks endpoint unless we are authenticated. So if things go well, fingers crossed, drum roll, we're going to make a request and then boom, it's good. So we're getting an error, right? And again, we're getting an error because now we've basically wrapped our tasks endpoint with the middleware. And again, remember the middleware is a function that basically runs before or after like your functions or whatever you want to do. It's basically just a function that runs before or after any function or any middleware. So you just say, I want this function to run before I make a request. So in this case, it's saying before I make any requests in this tasks endpoint, or when I make the request to this task endpoint, I want the middleware to run afterwards. Remember, function that runs before or after. This is telling us that we are unauthorized. So how do we get access, right? If you're trying to access someone's house, that, or maybe let's say your house you don't have access to, maybe you don't have the key, maybe you forgot the key, maybe you lost the key, and you need to find the key, right? You need to have the tools in which will enable you to be authenticated. And this, in this example, you basically need to now log in. So what we're gonna do is we need to make a request to the user's endpoint and say, okay, cool, I am this user. I want to log in. Can you give me the token for me to be able to proceed? So what I'll do is I've got this stored. Cool. So I was just continuing again. So essentially what we're doing here is, again, it's giving us a 401, which is good. I want to basically just take the login payload because I need to log in as this user. So let me just do this and let me go back here and then let me do now login. Right, so do that and then it's called users login. So let me do this. Okay, so I'm logging in as this user. I don't know if this is the user that needs the credentials, but let's just make a. So now I need to be logged in as anyone. So let me make this post. So yeah, let's give this a shot. Cool, perfect. So we're able to log in, and there we go. So we're logging in. I like this, but I also don't like it at the same time. Okay, we've got a 200. So it's giving us a better token, as you can see, login successful, which is good news. So I want to copy this because now I need this token to basically make requests. So what I'll do is let me actually, yeah, I don't like this. Let me do this. And then, so now this is authorization. I don't even know if I'm spelling correctly. Why is it not telling me? Bear. And then now let's basically change this to be the same request, but now tasks. So now I'm basically giving in this token. Is better. Okay, cool. So now let's try to make a request to the tasks endpoint again. So remember before we couldn't access it because we weren't authenticated. So let's give this a shot. Bad request. Something is wrong. It must be this here that I didn't like. See, I don't know how to use this properly. Um, you know what? Let me just do this. Let me just go here and let me just do this. Oops. Okay, so I have my token here. Let me do this. Let me go back here and let me just do this. And then let me do tasks. Cool, perfect. So we can access our task endpoint now because of our token. So if you don't believe it, let's change it and let's make a request. Bam. Again, so you can't access the tasks endpoint now unless you have the token, which is what we have here. And the nice thing about our token is it expires after an hour. So you can sort of set an expiry date and be like, okay, cool, I want this token to expire after an hour, so that if an hour has passed and you want to make a request again, you need to log back in. Again, this is more like a safety or security check. just so that people are being logged out. You don't want a platform or an application that essentially has people being logged in forever. You could move away from your PC, someone comes in and they can do some unforeseen things on your machine as you, and we don't want that. So hence we expire your session just for safety. Again, cookies also do more or less the same thing as well. You can set a cookie to be like, this cookie will expire after 2 days, and then when you log back in after 2 days, everything will be cleared as well. And I think the cookie is a little bit safer because it expires from the front end point of view without like really using session storage, but or let me say local storage. But we'll get into that when we get there. And cool. So now again, no token. No, I guess this doing its thing, but you saw it, you saw it, you saw it. We're not bluffing, we saw it, it works. So now we're gonna basically just proceed, and now we're going to now check that you have access to that resource only. So we're gonna write the IsOwner middleware as well, right? You can do the same thing. So what I'll do is let me go to this code that I have here, and then I'm gonna just do this and go here. Sorry, let me go to my middleware, and then IsOwner. Okay, so this is another middleware function as well. So what this does, again, this basically checks, okay, cool. The user ID that we're passing into the param, so whichever ID is it, um, is the user ID that we're passing the correct user ID that matches the logged in user's ID. So we sort of checking, okay, you're logged in as user X. Can user X access this data? Maybe we want to access user Y's information, but we logged in as user X. So it's going to compare user X versus user Y and tell us, okay, cool. Are you the same user? Is this the same? If it's not, we're going to say you are unauthorized because you're logged in as user X, but you're trying to access user Y's information. So again, you're logged in, but you don't have access to it. So that's essentially how we managing this. Again, we can do this better, we can improve on it, that sort of thing. This typo there I see, but this is very high level what we're doing, and this gives us a 403, which basically is forbidden, unauthorized. Yeah, so let's give this a shot. Again, our API is playing games with us, so it's going to be a bit hard to test it out, but let's write the code and then finish and test it out at the end rather, so that we don't waste time. So let me actually go to where this is written and let me do this now. So it works exactly the same. So basically the first one is, are you authenticated? Do you have a token that you're passing into this request? If it is, okay, cool. That token is going to include your user ID. Now we're going to check, okay, the user ID that's included in that token, right? Is that user ID, does that match the user ID that you're trying to query, that you want to get from the database? If there's a match, we know that you are who you say you are, we give you access to your resource. If it doesn't match, we know that you are basically trying to access someone else's data. We don't want that because we care about our users' privacy and data. So we were going to kick you out, or at least we're going to give you like a 403 unauthorized. Essentially, this is how it works. Let me see if I can get this to work. Otherwise, we can just finish the lesson and then we can test it out afterwards as well. So, test. It's still giving us issues. I'll fix this in our next episode so that, there you go, his ID is required. Oh, this is, so we need to give the user ID. Let's give it user ID 7. There we go. Perfect. So this example is telling us that we are logged in, right? Because we gave it in a header, but we are not user 7. At least user with the ID of 7. We're not. I don't know which it is. I think we're user 6 or 5. I think it's 5. We are some user, right? 1, 2, 3. Let me look. Check out tasks. What our database? We have users. Okay, so what is my email? User 9. I think I'm ID 9. Did I try 9? Yeah, I tried 7 out 9. Okay. So basically, we're logged in as user with the ID 9. If this is correct, I speak under correction because the code has to tell us whether we're right or not. If this is correct, we're basically going to only access user ID 9's data, which is good. We want that. So while this is loading, I think this is the correct one, but if it's not, it's okay. We'll fix it. Well, while this is loading, we're going to go and clean up the code, make it a bit better. So you're probably wondering, okay, cool, that works for that, but what if we want to access, task 1 or task 2? That means that we're going to have to basically do this, as you can imagine. And now, what if we have 10 endpoints, 20 endpoints? We're going to write this over and over and over and over and over again. It can work. It can work. Just copy and paste. Now it's fine. So basically, for each of these endpoints, we're going to check, are you authenticated? Are you the owner? If it is, we proceed, we give you access. But you can imagine the problem with this. As the application scales and as it grows, we don't want to do this. So there's an efficient way to a better, more efficient way to handle this. And essentially, we're going to just remove this, and we're going to do something which is pretty cool. I'll show you guys. Got the code here. We're going to use a middleware called app.use or route app.use. What this then does is this basically says, I'm going to import this now. Cool. This basically says, okay, whenever we are in the task router or we are accessing the tasks, right? The use basically says use this, whenever we're using this router, basically I want you, and the asterisk is all endpoints under this router. So whenever we're using or calling this endpoint, everything under it. So that's your get, your post, everything. We want every request that's coming through the task router basically to be protected with the isAuthenticated and isOwner. Essentially, whenever we're calling this endpoint, I want you to use these middleware functions to be like the first thing that happens basically. So hence why we're using the use. It encapsulates everything with the, what's this called, wildcard, asterisk wildcard, whatever you want to call it, that basically says, okay, cool, we need to be authenticated and we need to be the owner. So now at this point, you can't access any, and I mean any tasks endpoint without being authenticated and without being the owner. The cool thing is we just write this piece of code once and we can grow our application, right? We can add multiple routes, and the more we do this, the more we can see this is a lot more scalable. And again, we can probably improve this. We can make this a lot more better. Um, so yeah, we're gonna just pause it. We're gonna test it out. We're gonna try to fix my my HTTP client tool so that it can actually work. And then we're gonna test it out. So yeah, let's pause and go. Hey guys, so welcome again to the last part of our video, and essentially we're just testing that what we wrote in the previous segment actually is working fine. So we should only have access to the tasks that we created. So if we are logged in as user 9, we should only access user 9's tasks, right? And if we try to access user 7's tasks, we won't be allowed to, basically. So let's give it a shot and see that it works fine. I've got user ID 9, and then send request, as you can see, fine. This changes to be user ID 8. So you can see, boom, we're getting a 403. Okay, maybe the booms, but boom, we're getting a 403. So again, you're forbidden, so you don't have access to this. And we can actually test to be like, if we are really using 9. So what I'll do is I will write a piece of code, console.log, decoded, and we can actually see your user ID when you're logged in. So that we can just get confirmation, right? So let me just do this. Let me send this again. Oh no, okay, it's fine. It should come through. Just doing its thing again, where it just acts up. But essentially, when we get that payload, we should see user ID 8. I'll actually show you the code when I register. Let me go here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. My code is acting up. There we go. So remember, the token is a set of characters combined together, a combination. It's the ID, which is the user ID, the email, and expiry, which is like expiry dates. It expires after an hour, I think. So essentially, when we sign in and we are authorized, we have the token and it's decoded, we should get an object that tells us ID, email, and expiry, which I'm trying to get here, but it's failing. But rest assured, you can test this on your side. It's going to give us ID 9. So once again, it's, there we go, there we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. It's working. I was about to end the video. There we go. It's actually working. So we've got decoded ID 9, and we're trying to access ID 8. It's gonna fail as we saw now, because we are the user with ID 9. But if we change this to be user with ID 9, it's gonna work. So I think I can close it off. So once again, thank you guys for joining us today. We covered a lot, but I hope that it was super beneficial and educational. We learned about adding middlewares, adding authentication, adding its owner checks. And I look forward to, I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson, and I look forward to learning alongside you guys and growing together. So thank you again for joining. See you guys in the next episode.